Guys, I want us to go through. There's this exercise that I did. It's with regards to source documents. So basically, MT Stationers buys and sells stationery to customers. So MT Stationers is a vet vendor. So Faith, who is the customer, bought stationery from MT Stationers for 5,750, including VAT, and paid by cash. So I need you to answer the following questions. So using this information here, I need you to answer the below questions. What are the source documents for this transaction? For MT Stationers. So that's the question I'm asking you guys. Do you know, before I even ask you that question, what is source documents? What are source documents?
The source documents are actually those documents that we use to prepare, say, the trial balance.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Maluse. Anybody else? So basically, source documents are documents that the business use as evidence that a transaction happened. So source documents are documents that is proof that a transaction happened. So basically, source documents are in which stage of, let me just see, of the accounting cycle. So in the accounting cycle, this is source documents provide evidence for a transaction having taken place. So basically, I want us to look at this part here, the second part of the accounting cycle. So remember the steps in the accounting cycle. The first part is the transaction, and then the next part is source documents. So basically, I want us to look at the source documents. So basically, it's asking the transaction. So basically, the first step is, this is the transaction that happened. Faith, the customer, bought stationery from MT Stationers for 5,750, including VAT. So because MT Stationers is a VAT vendor, so the company is registered for VAT. So it means that all the invoices that they charge their customers, they're going to include VAT on those invoices. So when you are a VAT vendor, meaning you registered with SARS so that you can charge VAT from all your tax invoices. So MT Stationers is a VAT vendor. So what is required? What source documents for this transaction for MT Stationers? So because Faith, so Faith bought stationery. So guys, please just guess. So if somebody, Faith came to MT Stationers and bought stationery, what are the source documents? What must MT Stationers give Faith as proof that she bought stationery? So this is part of learning. We're looking at learning unit 2. We're looking at learning unit 2. This is part of learning unit 2.
I guess cash invoice would be one of the source document.
Okay. Malusa is saying a cash invoice. So meaning there should be evidence. So basically now, what I'm asking you is, what is the evidence that Faith has bought stationery from MT Stationers? and Maluse is saying a tax invoice. What is the source document? So basically, we're doing learning unit 2, and this is the exercise that I did. We're looking at source documents. So this is part of learning unit 2. For those who just came in, and this is an exercise that I'm doing. So this is an exercise that I just did. This is not part of the exercise on the learning unit, but this is part of learning unit 2. So basically, this exercise has taken into account learning unit 2 and learning unit 3, the VAT. So VAT also is part of this exercise, but it's in learning unit 3. So the question that I'm asking is, Faith bought stationery for 5,750, including VAT, and she paid by cash. So bought stationery from MT. So basically, this is the exercise that we're looking at now. Yes, you can see. Yeah, that's great. So I'm saying that MT Stationers buys and sells stationery to its customers. MT Stationers is a VAT vendor. Faith, who is a customer, bought stationery for 5,750, including VAT, from MT Stationers, and Faith paid by cash. So first of all, guys, especially when there's a question that's asking you about source documents, you need to decide, are they asking in a point of view of the business, which is MT Stationery? The question, is it asking about the business, or is it asking about the customer? So in this case, I'm asking about the business. What are the source documents for this transaction for the business? So the first, I think Maluse answered me. The first source document will be tax invoice. It will be a what? Is it an original or a duplicate tax invoice? Maluse, I think you said a tax invoice. So yeah. My question is it an original or a duplicate tax invoice?
It will be a duplicate because the original would have been taken by the customer.
Well done. So it will be a duplicate tax invoice. Why a duplicate? Because as a business, we would have issued the original tax invoice to Faith. So the source documents that will be kept by MT stationers after this sale. So this is a cash sale. So after this cash sale, the source documents that will be left in the business will be a duplicate tax invoice. So my other question is this the only source document that that MT stationers will be using for this transaction? Is this the only source document? Because they've issued the original tax invoice to Faith, the customer. Now they've left with a duplicate tax invoice as evidence that they sold stationery. So this is evidence that they sold stationery. So my question is this the only source document? Is this the only? Because now, guys, remember, MT stationers bought sold stationery to its customer Faith, and Faith paid by cash. So if Faith paid by cash, another source document will be and
cash register.
Another source document will be, is it Tebogo? Tebogo? Tebogo, you can unmute yourself. Tebogo? Tebogo, I can see your hand. Tebogo, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yes. What's another source document for this transaction?
The cash.
Oh, so you're saying the cash is another source document?
Yes.
Okay, no, right. Thank you, Tebogo. Guys, before I even finish this, let me just show you this. I want to show you this. I think it's in page, yes. So on the Learning Unit 2 on page 24, page 24 is got there is completion of source document. So it says that source documents are forms prepared by a business that document all the financial transactions of the business. So the business forms include purchase orders, receipts, invoices. So there are two types of source documents: internal source documents and external source documents. So what are internal source documents? Internal source documents are those documents prepared by the entity itself to record transactions with external clients. Let me just repeat that. What is internal source documents? Internal source documents are those documents prepared by the entity itself to record transaction with external clients. Source documents are usually drawn up in duplicates. So if it's an internal source document, it has to be, number one, it has to be prepared by the entity itself to record transactions. Number two, the source document usually drawn up in duplicate. That's an internal source document. So the internal source document also, the original will be given to the other party to the transaction, and a duplicate will remain with the entity to enable the entity to record the transaction in the accounting records. Number one, an internal source document is prepared by the entity itself. Number two, it is usually drawn up in duplicate. So the duplicate will remain with the entity to enable the entity to record transaction in their accounting records. So these example of internal source documents are cash register roll, duplicate cash invoices, duplicate receipts, petty cash vouchers, and duplicate bank deposit slip. So these are examples of internal source documents. So let me just go down. So what is external source documents? External source documents are documents prepared by the other party to the transactions and received by the business as proof that the transaction did take place. The business will receive original source documents and the entry into the accounting records is recorded from the original source documents. Example of original tax invoice would be original cash purchase invoices, original receipts, credit card slips, debit card slips, and cash slips. So these are the difference between your internal and your external source documents. Also, guys, a check counterfoil. This is a check is also an example of internal source documents. So an internal source document checks has been excluded from the list above. The checks counterfoils are also part of internal source documents. And also the current formats of payments that will be discussed in this modules are internet banking, credit card, cash send transactions, snap scan, cash payment, and debit cards. So this is just showing you that a check is also part of an internal source documents. So I just want to go back to this exercise here. So the question is, what are checks used for? So I don't think even checks are being used presently. So checks are a source document that was used as to make payment. So a business would pay. So instead of doing an EFT, businesses used to have a checkbook. So at the bank, they will give them a checkbook. In that checkbook, they will use to pay the suppliers. So they would. So in this example, let's say I say to you, so in this example that we're doing, let's say that the customer would have paid by check instead of a cash. So a check is a form of payment. You can pay your supplier or your expenses with a check. So it's a form of payment. So this question, I think Tebogo was answering this question before I interrupted her with that, explaining the internal and external source document. So Tebogo, you can go ahead. So the question was, what are the source documents for this transaction form for MT stationers? So we said the first one is a duplicate tax invoice. What is the next source document? What are the source documents? So the first one we said it was a duplicate tax invoice, and anybody else can answer the question. Malibongwe, please. Malibongwe.
Yes, okay, good morning. And also
Morning.
the cash register, since the transaction involves a cash. So the cash
Okay.
needs to be recorded, yeah.
Okay, all right. Guys, Malibongwe is saying a cash register. Somebody else who can just answer there. I think Malu says they saying, I guess the cash would need to be taken to the bank and a copy of a bank deposit will be another source. Yes, Malu says correct. Another source document is a duplicate deposit slip. Another source document is a duplicate deposit slip. So these two source documents are the source document that the business, that MT stationers will use to record in their books of first entry. So I want to show you the accounting cycle. So the accounting cycle says a transaction accounting process starts to take place. Number 2, source documents provide evidence for a transaction having taken place. So in this case, the source documents that will be evidence that the transaction has taken place would be a duplicate cash invoice and a duplicate deposit slip. So can you see that what is the next step after the source documents? Will be books of first entry. You will be using these two source documents. So can you see what the books of first entry is saying? The source document is prepared and the information is entered into the books of first entry. So guys, I want you to understand that especially when we do accounting, when we do the accounting process, we are following the accounting cycle. This is what we're doing. We are following the accounting cycle. And can you see that the accounting cycle, we're doing step 2 now, which is source documents. Source documents are the documents that will enable us as a business to record to the books of first entry. So books of first entry will be doing it. I think it will be learning unit 4. Learning unit 4, learning unit 5 will be doing ledger accounts. So learning unit 5 will be ledger accounts and trial balance. So I'm telling you that when you record, when you're recording your transaction, you are following the accounting cycle. At the present moment, we are looking at source documents for us to be able to identify a source document in a transaction. So basically, this is the step 2 now. You've got your source documents. Your source document is what? Is a duplicate tax invoice. Why a duplicate tax invoice? A duplicate tax invoice because we made a sale. As a business, as MT Stationers, we made a sale. So when we make a sale, we sold stationery to our customer who is Faith. We sold the stationery for cash. Because we sold stationery for cash, we issued an original tax invoice to Faith because she bought stationery from us and paid cash. We issued her an original tax invoice. And then once we received the cash, which is 5,750, we went to the bank and deposited that 5,750, and the bank kept the original deposit slip and issued us duplicate deposit slip. So that is the source documents that we will be using as a business. Guys, please mute your mic. Somebody's mic is not muted. Please, you're disturbing the class. Please, whose mic is? Somebody's mic is on, please. I think you're disturbing everybody in the class. So guys, I'm gonna repeat number 1 again. Why are we saying this is a duplicate tax invoice? We are saying this is a duplicate tax invoice because we as a business, MT Stationers, we sold stationery to our customer Faith, and we sold stationery and Faith, yes, we made a sale, yes, we made a sale, yes, we made a sale. And on that sale that we made, we needed to have evidence We needed to have evidence of that transaction. We needed to have evidence of that transaction. Yes, Desiree. Yes, we made a sale. So we needed to have evidence of that transaction. So what is the evidence of that transaction? Is we issued our customer Faith with an original tax invoice, and we remained with a duplicate tax invoice. And then after receiving, because we received cash, we went to the bank and deposited the 5,750 into the bank account. And then we were left with, the bank kept the original deposit slip, and we were left with a duplicate deposit slip. Number 2, are the source documents internal or external documents? So my question is the duplicate tax invoice and the duplicate deposit slip, are they internal or external source documents? Desiree is saying internal. Desiree is saying these are internal source documents. Oratile is saying internal. Maluse is saying internal. Yeah, guys, well done on that. These are internal source documents. These are internal source documents. Well done on that, eh? Well done. Yes, these are internal source document. My other question is, what is the VAT charged on the invoice? So remember, this is a VAT vendor. MT Stationers registered for VAT. Yes, Nsuku, yes, it's an internal source document. So because MT Stationers is a VAT vendor, my question is, what is the VAT amount charged? So the MT Stationers charged 5,750, including VAT on this invoice. So what is the VAT charged on the invoice? What is the VAT amount? Malibongo is saying 750. Guys, do you agree with Malibongo? Malibongo is saying it is 750. Faith is saying yes. Faith agrees. Faith is saying yes. Anybody else? Malibongo is saying 750. And Faith is saying yes to the 750. And then Maluse is saying it's 805. So guys, before and 5,750 including VAT, and let me just add that my apologies, the VAT rate is 15%. The VAT rate is 15%. Yes, I can. That's why, Malusa, that's why I needed to add that the VAT rate is 15%. The VAT rate is 15%. So, guys, when you are a VAT vendor, meaning Neo is saying the VAT amount on 5,750 is 862.50. That is Neo. Neo is saying 862.50 cents, and then Desiree says yes, VAT is 750. So guys, we've got two amounts. Neo is saying 862.50 cents, and Desiree is saying 750. Mpo is saying 750. Bulumko is saying 750. Okay, so guys, most people are saying 750. So the answer is 750. How did we calculate 750? How did we get to 750?
May I answer that? No?
Yes, please. Yes,
Okay.
please.
So when I use the 115%, so basically my basic calculation is that when this amount is inclusive of that, so it means basically the amount, it is at 100 plus 15. And then out of that 115, the portion of the VAT is 15%. So I calculated it, I'm typing it. It's saying multiply by 15, which is the VAT portion, and the total divide by 115, which is 100% plus the VAT amount, and then it gives you the 750.
Okay, guys, well done. Look at what I've highlighted. This is what it is. So I said, if you want to calculate the VAT amount, look at where I've highlighted in yellow. If you want to calculate the VAT amount in an invoice and you are given the amount including VAT, you're going to take the amount including VAT, in this case is 5,750, and you're going to multiply it by the VAT rate, which is 15%, and you're going to divide it by the by 100 plus the VAT rate. Are you with me, guys? Please, please, please write this down somewhere for you to remember. If you are given the VAT, the amount including VAT. Yes, so if you are given, please repeat. So if guys in a transaction, you are given the amount including VAT. In this case, this is the amount. I've highlighted the amount in yellow. You are given 5,750 in a transaction, and they tell you that please calculate the VAT amount. This is what you're gonna do. You're gonna take amount including VAT, which is this 5,750 multiplied by the VAT rate, which is 15%, divided by 100 plus the VAT rate, which is 115. Then you get to the 750. Please, if you can, just calculate it by yourself. Please calculate that amount on your own. Please calculate it and tell me if you get the 750.
Sorry, ma'am. Could you please also do an example? For example, if the question was that, or the statement was that the amount given excludes VAT, how do you calculate the VAT in that instance?
No problem. No problem. Okay, so in a case, guys, whereby this amount now is excluding, so I'm gonna give you that scenario after we do number 4. After number 4, I'll give you that scenario. So number 4 is, what is the amount excluding VAT? Yes, guys, well done. So the amount excluding VAT is, you can either take 5,750 minus the 750, then you get 5,000. Well done, guys, well done. Well done. So basically, you took the amount including VAT minus the VAT amount to get to 5,000. Or you can say, if you want to calculate the amount excluding VAT in an invoice and you are given the including VAT amount, you're gonna take the amount including VAT, which is 5,750 divided by 1.14, and you will get to 5,000. So just take 5,000, just take 5,750 divided by 1.14. How much do you get? You need to be getting the 5,000. So guys, if a question here has given you 5,000 and they want you to calculate the VAT amount, if in this case you are given the amount excluding VAT, in this exercise that we're doing is what is 5,000. So if you are given the amount excluding VAT, which is 5,000, and the question asks you to calculate the VAT amount, and you are given the VAT exclusive amount, and you need to calculate the VAT amount, you're gonna take the amount exclusive of VAT, in this case, which is 5,000, and you're gonna multiply it by 0.15. So if you are given the amount, if you are given the amount excluding VAT, and you need to calculate the VAT amount, you're going to it's gonna be 5,000 multiplied by 15%, which is 0.15. So it's gonna be the amount excluding VAT multiplied by 15%. Are you with me, guys? So if you are given the amount excluding VAT and you need to calculate the VAT amount, so you're gonna take 5,000 multiplied by 15% or times 0.15, then you will get the 750. Are you with me? And then number 5, is this a cash or a credit transaction? This, well done, guys. This is a cash transaction. Okay, guys, I want you to just calculate this. If you are given, yes, it's a cash transaction. So if you are given the VAT amount and you need to calculate the VAT include the amount including VAT. So in this case, I'm saying to you, you are given 750 and you need to get to 5,750. How do you calculate that? So a question is asking you that is saying the VAT amount is 750. What is the amount including VAT? So in this case, the VAT amount is 750. So you need to calculate the 5,750. Any guess? Anybody wants to guess how will we get to 5,750? So you say 750 times 1.15. Let's just calculate. 750 times 1.15. I don't get to 5,750. So guys, the answer will be, you will say 750 times 115 divided by 15. It will be equals to 5,750. So if you are given the VAT amount and you need to calculate the amount including VAT, you will take the VAT amount multiplied by 100 plus the rate divided by the rate. And then if you are given the VAT amount and you need to calculate the amount excluding VAT, you're gonna say 750 multiplied by 100 divided by 15 and you get to 5,000. So this is basically now when you given, so you can calculate your VAT, inclusive, exclusive, with whatever amount they can give you. So basically now, after this transaction, after this sale, this would happen. This will happen. Amount excluding VAT. VAT amount and amount including VAT. So basically, this is what normally happens. So a company, so basically, this here amount excluding VAT, which is 5,000. The VAT amount, which is 750, and the amount including VAT, which is 5,750. So basically, guys, because MT Stationers is registered for VAT, so on a tax invoice, the total tax invoice would be 5,750. On that 5,750, 5,000 is a sale for MT Stationers. 750 needs to be paid to SARS. And this is the total invoice amount. So guys, can you see that on this total invoice, this 5,750, the total amount doesn't belong to MT Stationers. The total amount doesn't belong to stationers. Only 5,000 is the sale that they made on this invoice. And because they are VAT vendor, the 750 needs to be paid to SARS. So every business which is a VAT vendor needs to, if they charge VAT on their invoice, that this portion here needs to be paid to SARS. And this is called, this is what we call VAT output. So what is VAT output? VAT output is a liability. It is the amount that the company collects on behalf of SARS. So this is the amount that the MT Stationers collects on behalf of SARS. So they will submit a form called the VAT 201 return to SARS and paying SARS this amount. So guys, if I remember the next class, I will show you how the VAT 201 looks like. I will show you how that VAT 201 looks like. So this is the form that a company, depending on their payment terms, because a bigger company with a revenue of with a higher revenue will pay VAT on a monthly basis. But if the revenue is less than 500,000, those companies pay SARS 2 months. After 2 months, they'll pay SARS. But with a turnover of over $1 million, you need to make sure that you submit your your VAT 201 on a monthly basis. So if your turnover is 500,000 or less, you can pay SARS, submit your VAT 201, because you can submit your VAT 201 every 2 months. But if your turnover as a company is more than $1 million, you need to submit your VAT 201 on a monthly basis. So I think the next class I'll be able to show you how to complete a VET 201, but normally the VET 201 is online. A lot of people are doing it online, so you can submit it online. So this is, I wanna do another example with you guys. Are you still there, guys? Are you still with me?
Yebo.
So I want to show you another example. I want us to go through this example. Oh, yes, that's good. That's good, Karabo. Tebogo, you're saying you're still alive. Assignment 1 consists of 1 and 2. Yes, yes. So guys, I want us to go through this exercise. Let's see. Yes, this one. Okay, yeah. So this is the exercise I want us to do, guys. It's more on source documents. I want you to be able to recognize source documents, to be able to identify source documents. So in this exercise, I'm saying source documents provide evidence for a transaction to take place. Source documents are the forms prepared by a business that source documents are the forms prepared by a business that document all the transactions of the business, i.e. buying goods or providing service. The business forms include purchase orders, receipts, invoices, etc. For every transaction, a source document needs to be completed. When a form, guys, for every transaction, gonna highlight that. For every transaction that happens in a business, a source document needs to be completed. Why must a source document be completed? Because there needs to be evidence that a transaction has taken place in a business. So when a firm receives cash receipts, when a firm receives cash, a receipt is issued, and when when service is rendered on credit, customers pays later. An invoice or debit note is issued. There are two. Okay, we've covered that. So I want to go through. Look at transaction 1. Mr. B. Sithole decided to deposit 100,000 in the entity's bank account to start the business. Mr. B. Sithole gave Mrs. S. Peterson a check for 100,000 to deposit into the current bank account of BS Electrical. So who is Mrs. S. Peterson? Mrs. S. Peterson is the bookkeeper of BS Electrical. And Mr. B. Sithole, who is an electrician, senior electrician, who is the owner of this business, who is an electrician and also the owner of the business, took a check from his, So the money, so this 100,000 is from his personal account, does not come from the business. So I'm asking you to say that what are the source document of this transaction one? Number one, Mr. Sitole decided to deposit 100,000 into the entity's bank account. To start the business. And Mr. B. Sitole gave Mrs. S. Peterson a check of 100,000 to deposit into the current bank account of BS Electrical. So the main thing here is here, decided to deposit 100,000 in the entity's bank account. And also, Mr. B. Sitole gave Mrs. S. Peterson, Mr. S. Peterson a check of 100,000. So Desiree is saying bank deposit slip. And Suku is saying bank deposit slip. So Malose is saying duplicate deposit slip and the check. And Nsuku is saying bank deposit slip. Do you agree, guys? So Desiree is saying bank deposit slip, but Desiree is not mentioning if is this the original deposit slip or the duplicate? What is it? And Maluse is saying duplicate deposit slip and the check. And Nsuku is also not mentioning if the if the deposit slip is it what? Duplicate, what is it? Oh, and then Desiree saying original. Is it the original bank deposit slip? Okay. Okay, Desiree is saying original deposit bank slip. All right. Okay, anybody else? What are the source documents for this? Nsuku is saying duplicate deposit slip. Thank you. Thank you, Nsuku, saying duplicate deposit slip. So what is the source documents or what are the source documents? Can be one, can be two, can be three. What are the source documents or what is the source document or what are the source documents? So Myla is saying duplicate deposit slip and check. Guys, are we happy with? I can see most people are saying duplicate deposit slip and a check. And you see, this is also important, eh? That so guys, the answer, look at the answer. The answer, yes, the answer. Oh, okay, Tebogo. So here's the first, here is the first source document. It's a duplicate receipt. So this receipt is a acknowledgement of receipt of the check. So Mrs. S. Peterson is acknowledging that she received a check from Mr. B.C. Tolle for 100,000. So this is a duplicate receipt, and the original receipt was given to B.C. Tolle. So the first source document is a duplicate receipt. The original receipt was given to Mr. Sithole. Is the check a source document? Not in this instant. So number 2, the second source document is a duplicate deposit slip. Most of you are right with the duplicate deposit slip. The bank kept the original. So the only 2 source document is a duplicate receipt and a duplicate deposit slip. The question is, why are we not including this check as a source document? So we're not including this check because this check is not part of our source document, because this check comes from his personal bank account. This check doesn't form part of BS Electrical. So remember, guys, when you start a business and you are you starting a business and you are contributing money into the business, that money can't come from the business. Are you with me? That money can't come from the business because you only now starting that business with a contribution from it's either this 100,000, I don't know, you took a loan from your personal account or you took that loan from your savings, but 100,000, the check doesn't form part of BS Electrical business. So this is not a source document that BS Electrical can use in their business, because this is a check from B. Sithole's personal account. So this check doesn't derive from the business. Are you with me? That's why we're not including the check as a source document, because the check didn't come from BS Electrical. So the source documents that will be used to record in the books of BS Electrical is this duplicate receipt and this duplicate deposit slip. So if I may ask you, I don't think because I think the question that I'm asking, I know you're just gonna be guessing, but this will be in Learning Unit 4. So the question I'm gonna ask is, if you have a duplicate receipt and a duplicate deposit slip, what do you think you will record this transaction? In which books of prime entry will you record those transactions? Do you know? If now you need to record this transaction in the books of prime entry, do you know in which books of prime entry? And at that time, the source documents that you have is a duplicate receipt and a duplicate deposit slip. Are you with me, guys? So basically, when a business has received money, so this is a duplicate receipt and a duplicate deposit slip. This will be recorded in the in a cash book. This will be in a cash receipts in cash receipts journal. So this is now step 3 of the accounting cycle. You need to record your transaction using the source documents in the books of prime entry. So I was just asking you, when you have the source documents, which is a duplicate receipt and a duplicate deposit slip, where would you record that? You would record this in your business cash receipt journal. This will be will go to your cash receipt journal. So I think you will see it when you get to learning unit 4. But I'm just doing it. But when you get to learning unit 4, then you will understand. When you record a transaction in your cash receipts journal, these are when money is being deposited or being transferred into the business a bank account. Okay, so let's do transaction number 2. So transaction number 2 is on the 2nd of January 2006, BS Electrical bought a toolbox and tools to be used by Mr. BC Tole from Big Builders for 10,000, VAT inclusive, and paid by check number 001. Guys, number 1, I want to ask you about transaction number 1. Is that internal source document or external source document? Yes, well done. Well done. These are the ones that are prepared. Yes, this is internal. This is internal source document. So number 2, transaction number 2 is on the 2nd of January 2006, BS Electrical bought toolbox and tools to be used by Mr. Sitole from Big Builders for 10,000, VAT inclusive, and paid by check number 0001. So my question is, what is the source document, or what are the source documents for this transaction? So we're on transaction number 2. I want to know, what are the source documents? I'm gonna try and do this for you, just to make it easier for you. I'm gonna do this. So I want to ask you, so remember in this example of internal source documents, there's also check counterfoil. Don't forget there's also a check counterfoil in here. So there's also, so I want you to look at this, if there is any source document on this, and also, so is it either, so is this internal source documents or, so I'm gonna, so in here, it can either be cash register roll, duplicate, cash register roll, duplicate cash sales invoice, duplicate receipts, petty cash, duplicate bank deposit, or it can be externally, can be this. I'm gonna just, so examples of the external source documents. Example of external source documents are these. So on the 2nd of Jan, BS Electrical bought a toolbox and tools to be used by Mr. B. Sitole from Big Builders for 10,000 and paid by check number 003. The main thing that's here is, what did Mr. Sitole, what is the evidence that he received that he bought the toolbox from Big Builders? That's the first question for you in determining the source document. What is the proof? What is the evidence or the what is the evidence that Mr. Mr. Sitole bought toolbox from tools from BS Electrical and he paid by check? So I see duplicate receipts. So Nsuku says duplicate receipts. Faith, check counterfoil and original receipt. Original receipt. Guys, I'm going to repeat that. If you go and buy, so I'm just going to give you a random example. You yourself go and buy at Macro. You go buy computer. So my question is, what is the proof that the details, like what I bought, is toolbox and tools? So if toolbox is an asset and I want to record this in the asset register, so because this is an asset, I need to keep it in my asset register. What will I use as proof that I bought this invoice? If the auditors come and say, give us proof that you bought this BS Electric, that you bought toolbox and tools that is in your fixed asset register. Give us proof. What proof will you give to auditors that BS Electrical bought toolbox? What proof will you give to the auditors? Guys, what proof will you give to the auditors? The auditors won't take a receipt. The auditors want to see the original tax invoice, detailing that what was bought was toolbox and tools, and also determining the invoice amount, which is 10,000. The auditors won't take that you giving them the receipt as proof that you bought toolbox and tools. Auditors won't take that you giving them the receipt. No, they want to see the original tax invoice that will detail that whatever was bought was toolbox and tools, and the amount on that invoice is 10,000 including VAT. So the source documents, yes, I can see people said, yes, you're right, is a check counterfoil. So you issued as big builders, can you see? Big builders paid big, we as BS Electrical, we paid big builders 10,000. So this is the date, this went to big builders from BS Electrical. How much is 10,000? The next original cash invoice is the tax invoice that will prove that toolbox was bought. This is the tax invoice from big builders. As a business, you need to have an original tax invoice. Yes, as you, the customer, normally at macro, they will give you the invoice and attach your proof of payment. Let's say you bought, you swiped your card. They will give you the invoice and attach your that you paid by card. So they will attach your receipt on it. But the main in a source document in a business is the original cash invoice. So remember, the receipt is just a proof that you paid, and you don't get an original receipt. You get the macro or whatever. Big builders will keep the original. They'll give you the copy of that proof of payment that you paid, of that receipt. Or so because you paid by cash, they'll give you this original cash invoice. Can you see? It's also showing that 10,000 was the invoice amount. So the source documents, when the source document that for this transaction is because BS Electrical paid by check, it will be the check counterfoil, and for the proof that toolbox and tools was bought will be, the proof will be that original tax invoice. So because now checks, I don't think checks are used anymore. In a practical scenario, BS Electrical will do an EFT. So in a case whereby they've paid by EFT, what will be the source document instead of this check counterfoil? If this was paid by EFT, not by check. Yes, yes, yes. Proof of payment. Proof of payment. Yes, proof of transfer. Yes, 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 proof of transfer of payment. Yes. So transaction number 2, I need to ask you, is this internal or external? This check counterfoil and this original cash invoice. Internal or external source document. So I need you to be specific. So is the check counterfoil and the original cash invoice both external documents? Are you saying that? Are you saying that the check counterfoil and the original cash invoice are both external source documents? Faith is saying check is internal and invoice is external. Desiree is saying original cash invoice is external and a check is internal. Well done, guys. Well done. Yes, check counterfoil is an internal document and the invoice from BS, from Big Builders, is an external document. Transaction number 3, on the 2nd of January, BS Electrical bought a cash register for 3,378 by check number 0002 from Wiseman Traders. Received a cash invoice number of 0578 from Wiseman Traders to be retained for guarantee purposes. Mrs. S. Peterson negotiated for a discount of 10% because the cash register was paid for by check. What are the source documents? What are the source documents for transaction number 3? So okay, Faith is saying check counterfoil and original invoice. So first of all, what is the evidence that BS Electrical has bought a cash register? What is the evidence? And paid by check. What is that evidence? What is that evidence? So Faith is saying check counterfoil and original invoice. And check number. What is the evidence that BS Electrical bought a cash register for 3,378 and 88 cents, VAT inclusive? And guys, before we go, we finish transaction number 3. Do you know how they calculated 1,000, this 1,300 for the VAT amount? Can you just quickly just calculate the VAT amount? How did they calculate the VAT amount? How did they get to 1,303.04.35? And how did they get to 8695.65 when they are given 10,000 amount including VAT? So before we go to transaction 3, I just want to know how they got to 8695.65, the amount excluding VAT, and the VAT amount of 1304.35 on this invoice, on this tax invoice. Okay, Desiree is saying for the VAT amount, they said 10,000 times 15 divided by 114. Okay, do you agree with Desiree, guys? Maila is saying 10,000 times 15 divided by 115. Yes, guys, that's correct. You take the VAT inclusive, multiply by the VAT rate, divided by 100 plus the VAT rate. And then the next one is, how do they calculate the amount excluding VAT, the 8695.65? How did they calculate the 8695.65, the 8,695 and 65 cents, the amount excluding VAT? Faith is saying 10,000 divided by 1.15. Do you get to 8695.65? Oh, so you said 10,000 divided by 1.15. Guys, do you agree with Faith? Yes, Maila agrees with Faith. Yes, guys, when you need to calculate the amount excluding VAT, you're gonna, Milo also agrees. So you're gonna take the 10,000 divided by 1.15 to get to 8695.65. Well done, Faith. Yes, that's correct. So let's look at transaction. Yes, Nsu. Yes, that's correct. Let's look at transaction number 3. What are the source documents there? What are the source documents there? On the 2nd of January 20.6, BS Electrical bought a cash register for 3,378.88 cents, VAT inclusive by check number check number 0002 from Wiseman Traders. Received cash invoice number. So guys, when you read the transaction properly, the answer is there. The answer is there. When you read the question properly, the answer is there. Received a cash invoice number 0578 from Wiseman Traders to be retained for guarantee purposes. Mrs. S. Peterson negotiated a discount of 10% because the cash register was paid by check. Guys, the transaction, the answer is there. Nsuku is saying tax invoice and cash receipts. Tebogo is saying cash invoice. So guys, be specific. I need you to be specific when you talk about an invoice. Is that the original invoice or a duplicate? Is that an original cash invoice or a duplicate cash invoice? You need to specify. So, Wiseman Traders issued. So Karabo is saying original cash invoice. Karabo is saying original cash invoice. What are the source documents? So Karabo is saying original cash invoice. Desiree is saying cash sale invoice and check counterfoil. Desiree is saying original cash sale invoice and check counterfoil. Both internal source documents. That is Desiree. So Desiree is already telling us, guys, that both are internal source documents. Do you agree? So guys, the answer is most of you are correct. The first source document is the check counterfoil. We issued a check for an amount of 3378.88 minus 10% discount. So this is the total invoice amount, but there was a 10% discount. So this is 3378.8, 3,378.88 cents minus 10%. Oh, okay. No, I see, Desiree. So basically you're saying the original cash is external source document noted. So guys, the check counterfoil and then another source document is the original cash invoice. This is the original. And what are the source documents? Desiree is saying the check counterfoil is an internal source document and the original tax invoice is an external source document. Do you agree with Desiree? Okay, Faith, 100% agree. Faith, 100% agree. Okay, let's do transaction number 4. The entity received an invoice from Mr. Bisitole for rent for January. The rent of 2,000 VAT inclusive for occupying part of a building situated on Mr. Bisitole's land was paid by issuing a check number 0004 on the 4th of January. What are the source documents for this transaction? Number 1, received an invoice from Mr. Bisitole for rent. Who received the invoice? BS Electrical. And how did the invoice, so after receiving the invoice, BS Electrical paid by issuing a check or a check. So what are the source documents for this transaction? What are the source documents? I always say, guys, Nsuku is saying check counterfoil. Mpo is saying original receipts and a check. So, guys, please, 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 you need to read the question properly. The entity BS Electrical received an invoice from Mr. BC Tole for the rent for January and paid by issuing a check. So Faith is saying original cash invoice and a check counterfoil. Myla M is saying original cash receipts and a check counterfoil. Desiree is saying duplicate tax invoice and a check counterfoil. Both are internal source documents. Guys, let's read the transaction properly. The BS Electrical, which is the entity, received an invoice from Mr. BC Tole for rent for January. Why are they receiving an invoice from Mr. BC Tole? Because BS Electrical is occupying part of a building situated on Mr. BC Tole's land. They are being billed for a rental. So basically, yes, Desiree, they are being billed for rent, so they are paying by check. So BS Electrical is paying by check, therefore the rental space. They are paying. So they are paying an expense. So what are the source documents? So the entity BS Electrical is receiving a rental invoice from Mr. BC Tole for rent. They are receiving an invoice from BC Tole for rental expense. And Tebogo is saying, I agree with Desiree. Guys, the answer is check counterfoil, because this was paid by check, and an original tax invoice, not a duplicate tax invoice. Faith is correct. Faith is correct. BS, Mr. B. Sitole is issuing an original invoice to BS Electrical. So they are getting an original tax invoice from Mr. BC Tole because they are paying for rent. They are paying for rent. They are paying for rent. This can't be a duplicate invoice because they are not receiving money. They are paying for an expense. So transaction number 5. On the 10th of January, Mr. B.C. Tole rendered a service to not 3, to 2 different clients, Mr. P. Lucky and Mrs. V. Happy. Original sales invoices number 0001 and 0002 were issued to them respectively. They have paid the amounts, and receipt number 002 and 003 were issued to Mr. P. Lucky and Mrs. V. Happy respectively. Mrs. S. Peterson only deposited this amount into the business bank account on the 11th of January. What are the source documents of this transaction? And guys, the answers are there on the transactions. All the answers are there. Original sales invoice was issued by BS Electrical, and they have paid the amounts by cash, and receipt 2 and 3 were issued to the clients. And the amount was deposited into the business bank account. What are the source documents for this transaction? What are the source documents for this transaction? On the 10th of, I want you to focus on what I have highlighted. Original sales invoice number 0001 and number 0002 were issued to Mr. P. Lucky and Mrs. V. Happy by BS Electrical. Receipt number 0002 and receipt 0003 were issued to Mr. P. Lucky and Mrs. V. Happy by BS Electrical. The money that was received from this sale was deposited into the business bank account. What are the source documents for this transaction, guys? What are the source documents? Desiree is saying original cash receipts and original sales invoice. Okay. Suku Z said original invoices and duplicate deposit slip and check. Dewoho is saying original invoice issued by BS, duplicate receipt to client and proof of deposit. Guys, I'm gonna repeat this, read this again. On the 10th of January 2006, Mr. B.C. Tole rendered a service to 2 different clients, Mr. B, Mr. P. Lucky and Mrs. V. Lucky. original sales invoices number 001 and 002 were issued to the clients. What are the original invoices were original invoices were issued to Mr. P. Lucky and Mrs. V. Happy. So what is the proof or evidence that is left with BS Electrical that a sale occurred? So my saying duplicate sales invoices, duplicate receipts, and original cash deposit slip. What are the source documents that are left with BS Electrical as proof that they rendered a service to Mr. P. Lucky and Mrs. V. Happy? Desiree is saying original sale invoice and duplicate bank deposit slip. Okay. What is left? So if number one, guys, I'm gonna give you a hint to answer this one. If BS Electrical has issued original sales invoice to Mrs. V Happy and P Lucky, what are they left with? There's no way that they are left with original sales invoice if they've issued the clients the original. That's number one. Number two, if they've issued original receipts to Mr. Lucky and Mrs. V Happy, if they've issued them original receipts, receipt number 002 and 003, there is no way that they're left with original receipt. And number three, if they've deposited this money to the bank account, there is no way that the bank will give them original deposit slip. So I hope that what I just said will help you answer the question. So number one, if we've issued original invoice for the sale, we can't be left with original also if we've given the clients the original. We can't be left with original sales invoice. Point number two, if we've issued original receipt, if we issued original receipt, we can't be left with a original receipt with us. And number three, if we've made a bank deposit for the amount of money that we received, we can't be having original deposit slip. If I deposit money, the bank doesn't give me the original deposit slip. They take the original and I'm left with what? There's Nsuku is saying, let's see, Deboho is saying duplicate invoice issued respectively. Original receipt is issued to client, duplicate deposit slip. And Desiree is saying they will be left with only duplicate sales invoice and a bank with a duplicate deposit slip. And Mpo is saying duplicate cash sales invoice and duplicate bank deposit slip. Maila is saying duplicates. Guys, what will be left? Can you see that the transaction is giving you the answer? If original sales invoices are issued, duplicate sales invoices are left with BS Electrical. If original receipts are given, duplicate receipts are left with BS Electrical. And if we made a payment to the bank keeps the original deposit slip and we are left with duplicate bank deposit slip. So Myla is correct. Myla is correct. Can you see that? Duplicate cash sales invoice. Duplicate receipts and duplicate deposit slip. You understand, guys? Can you see? Duplicates, especially when it's a sale. We can't be having the original. We're issuing our clients with the original. We're issuing the clients with the original. Yes, important reading the transaction. Important. Yes, with an understanding. Understanding what the transaction is telling you. Then you'll be able to get the answer. You need to understand you are in the position of the business. What is the business? What are you left with for you to record in the books of prime entry? What are you left with? What are you left with for you to record in the books of prime entry? Guys, basically this is source documents and VAT. This is the source documents and VAT.